Western Conference Finals. Wolves howling, thunder cracking. It's not your father's ball night, all right? Everybody, let me hear it. Ball night.
Ball night.
Just the ladies now.
Puck night too.
Yes, and
Puck
just
night
the
too,
men
okay?
with shaved heads. Also one
Ball night.
slow-mo out of the box. Making too big deal of it or not enough? And Pushing Tush Part 12 with Emily Kaplan, Marcel Louis-Jacques, Bill Barnwell, and the return of Bomani Jones. Let's go around the horn.
I actually did think he was saying ball tonight, like it's a
Ball night, ball night. I mean, we're covering all our bases here. Welcome home, Bomani Jones, host of The Right Time with Bomani Jones, wherever you get your podcasts. Career, 560 appearances on the show. The man who innovated Beat 'em Down and wore jewelry to the tune of 159 wins on this show. Also, Bomani, I want to give you another bonus. I love our commencement speakers for our fine graduates. I saw you there at Prairie View and A&M this week. That must have been wonderful. Tell us everything you've done in your life since your last show, Bomani. You got 10 seconds. Don't leave anything out.
You know, just doing like we normally do, baby. Holding it down, keeping it real, host a couple TV shows. You know, sometimes they get canceled.
I have no idea what you're talking about until Friday. One more mini intro. Welcome back, Bill Barnwell from paternity leave. Bill, I say this to every baby I see, but this is the most handsome baby I've ever seen in my life. Baby Graham, take another look. Take another look. Congrats again, Bill and Emily. We'll go to the first word now. Let's go. Will I do more ESPN picks? Yes, I will do more ESPN. It has been the worst year for picks at our network. I say that respectfully. So many 11-0s that have gone the other way. Picking your nose, picking your friend's nose. I think we know what we're talking about here. So this is 9-5 OKC. Season series was 2-2 Thunder and Timberwolves, with Julius Randle playing in only one of those games. Styles makes fights. I don't need to tell you that. How you see the matchups, the number one matchup, the X factor in this series. It's all on the floor. To you, Bomani Jones, around the horn.
It's going to come down to whether or not Minnesota can focus and hold on to the basketball. The Timberwolves led the league in points forced off of turnovers this year, one of the highest numbers anybody has had in years, and they are actually now forcing more points off of turnovers in the postseason than they did in the regular season. Minnesota, on the other hand, has turned the ball over 20 times in 3 straight games. They're averaging almost 15 turnovers per game in the postseason. But if they can hold on to the ball, you realize that a big part of how Oklahoma City does this is those points off of turnovers. What they don't have is a second option who can get his own shot. And the thing that Minnesota does have with Randle and Anthony Edwards is 2 guys that can get their own shots. And maybe I'm just an old school, antiquated old playoff watcher, but dudes that can get their own shots are what determine how deeply you wind up going in the playoffs. So the depth that Oklahoma City has is fantastic. And if the refs let them play defense like fouling octopi, then they'll also be in great shape. But if they can't do that, they're going to have to get buckets in ways other than shooting 3-pointers. And there's questions about everybody on that team except for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Make it up for lost time, Bomani. That was, I mean, most words per minute in show history, always Bomani Jones. A lot to unpack there. Marcel, how do you see this series? Who do you believe is the favorite?
I mean, Oklahoma City should be the favorite. They had one of the best regular seasons we've ever seen in terms of point margin and point differential. They have one of the deepest rosters in the NBA. I think it boils down really to 2 things. One of them, Bomani touched on. The other guys in that AT&T commercial need to show up, specifically Jalen Williams. He was great in Game 3 against Denver. He was fantastic in Game 7. In between, he shot 10 for 43 from the field. That is not going to cut it. And then as a whole, Oklahoma City has to shoot well enough from the 3-point line to keep Minnesota from playing zone defense. It's something Chris Finch wants to do, and it's something that if Rudy Gobert is allowed to roam the paint and protect the hoop, you are going to have a bad time. And then, of course, a bonus, number 3, is, like Bomani said, that turnover margin. If the Thunder can get Minnesota out of its sorts, then I've got Oklahoma City in 6.
Emily Kaplan, around the horn to you.
Yeah, it's Oklahoma City for me. Like Bomani said, the things they did in the regular season, they do even better in the playoffs. That's an identity. But their real strength is their depth. And the X factor to me is Alex Caruso. What that guy is able to do in 22 minutes tonight is insane. It's like a hockey shift, right? He conserves all of his energy. He goes out there. He annoys the heck out of somebody. What he did to Jokic in just 100 pounds difference, 6-inch difference is pretty remarkable. So I'm looking forward to seeing, do you match him up on Randall? Do you put him on Ant for a little bit? And okay, if he's on the bench, you still got Dort, you still got Wallace, you still got Jalen Williams, a lot of other guys who can defend.
Of course,
well.
there's a lot to like about Oklahoma City, but something Kaplan said there, what they did in the regular season works in the postseason. They did just go to 7 games in the second round, Bill Barnwell. Is that a source of suspicion for you, or who you believe the favorites are?
Yeah, I still think OKC is the favorite because of what we saw from them over the broader regular season. But since the start of March, Minnesota has been just as good as OKC, 25-6 since the start of March, winning games by an average of about 10 points per contest. They're healthy, which we can't say about every single NBA team that's maybe decided that last series. And I agree with Emily. Alex Caruso is going to play a huge role in this series. But by the end of that series, the Nuggets only had one player left of any note in Nikola Jokic, who was going to be their primary creator. As Bomani said, there are multiple creators who can get their shot on this Timberwolves offense. And I also think, by the way, on defense, they might have learned something from the Nuggets in that last series. Play more zone. Force the guys who are in SGA to shoot. That's the way you beat
OKC coach Mark Daigneault said that precisely, that they did learn something. How many times did I hear Bomani is right in that answer? Have you guys forgot how we do this show? Bomani, one thing Marcel said, that you might see some zone defense from Minnesota. How do you feel about zone defense, Bo?
You know, as much as I like Anthony Edwards, encouraging him to begin just such cowardly behavior is not really what my get down is. But at the same time, apparently it's been effective, and that's what they do in basketball these days, is play zone.
Wait, didn't you
defense.
once sell T-shirts that said "Zone is for cowards"? Do I have that right? I
That
believe
is
there
right.
was a, yeah.
That is right.
I didn't sense which
it's a
way you were
mantra to live
leaning in
by.
this series. So who you got, Bomani?
I think that this is going to be the Anthony Edwards star turn, and that Minnesota
you
is
were
going to
feeling
wrap
that
this
way.
up at home in 6 games.
Bill Barnwell, who you got?
Give me Wolves in 7.
Emily Kaplan.
Bomani, sorry, Anthony Edwards hasn't had a star turn already. I got Oklahoma City, though, in 6.
And Marcel, you already made your pick, and we'll move on now to a baseball story. Juan Soto, Juan Slow-Mo, as it was called in the headline. We'll show you that in a second. He denies lollygagging after the single off the Green Monster last night in the Mets-Red Sox game. Mets manager Carlos Mendoza says he'll have a shout with Soto. This comes a week after the weekend where Mets-Yankees played. Soto was booed quite a bit. A season-long slump-ish from Soto as well, the big off-season contract. There was also this from the New York Post this morning, and this from Michael Kay on the Michael Kay Show, that he had spoken to people involved with the Mets and said Soto is, quote, very, very glum around the clubhouse. Kay also said it was a family decision for the Sotos to go to the Mets, but maybe that was more family, implying Soto maybe was wanting to stay with the Yankees. That's all conjecture, I guess. But Bill, where do you stand on this?
I stand that we are 6 weeks into a 15-year contract. We have to chill. We are only 6 weeks into this situation, and the Mets are getting pretty much exactly what they would have expected from Juan Soto, aside from the hitting. He was 370th in sprint speed last year per Baseball Savant. He's 363rd this year. He was the 12th worst base runner in baseball last season per Fangraphs. He's not someone who does anything at a high level outside of the hitting, which is spectacular. So you take that normally because you're getting great hitting. The fact is Juan Soto has not hit incredibly so far. He's hit okay. I have no doubt he's going to be fine. He is a Hall of Fame caliber hitter. That's what the Mets paid for. They knew what they were getting with all this other stuff. They're just upset about getting it now because the hitting
That's
has not
the
been up to their
lollygagging
expectations.
part of it. Also, the second or third part of the story was glum around the clubhouse. That's, do you believe that? Is there anything to that? How did you read into that?
Yeah, I would say let's talk in October. If he's still glum in October and the Mets are in the postseason, it's not going to be a story. I'm here in Boston. Manny Ramirez was upset from Boston for a long time, and they did just fine.
Monty Jones around the horn of you.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Freddie Freeman was a little sad when he first got to the Dodgers, and they said eventually he'd get over it, and then eventually he got over it, right? That happens. There are transitionary times. What I think is interesting about this situation, though, with Soto is this is the dreaded lack of hustle thing in baseball, and people have done media research on this, and when it's lack of hustle that goes down, it's often a guy with a name like Juan, but it's normally not a manager in that place with a name like Carlos. And I think that's going to help tamp down what is ordinarily a huge controversy when this happens because it taps into third rail stuff. That's not going to happen this time. The manager says, I will have a chat with him. That's probably going to be the end of it. In the end, Soto's going to wish he had done that on Tuesday night or Wednesday night when the Knicks are playing, and then nobody would have time to care about this. But on the in-between time, you wind up on the cover of the newspaper.
Marcelo Jacques.
But Tony, the best and worst part of effort-related issues is that they are completely controllable, right? Mendoza said he is going to talk to him. The ball is in Juan Soto's court. At this point, it is up to him. If he wants to start trying harder, if he wants to hustle, then he's going to hustle. If he doesn't, then he won't. It's not some deep analytical hole that's being exploited. It's not something that the Mets didn't see coming. It's truly just a matter of how hard does Juan Soto want to try. So Mendoza's going to speak to him. Now it's up to Juan to earn that contract and try a little bit harder, get a little bit of hustle. But I will say, he did steal second base on the first pitch after that lollygag to first base. So, it corrected itself.
Emily Kaplan.
You know, I think anytime someone signs a contract for 15 years that's fully guaranteed, let alone for $765 million, you know it's probably not going to age well. But you think that's going to happen in like year 8 or year 9, not 4 months after signing it. So I think we just have to remember who Juan Soto was to get to this point, a guy that continually bet on himself and met the moment. And so let's remember that instead of this one anecdote of him not hustling this time, because it's a much easier conversation to have than maybe saying, is this an issue or an indictment on Mets culture, or just a referendum on these mega contracts in general, which I think is actually the issue at play.
We've seen players have a tough transition to new teams before, tough transition to new contracts before. It all came in one weekend this weekend as well, as the Yankees took 2 of 3 from the Mets, and the boos that were raining down on Soto as he was playing outfield for the Mets. Taking a break, buy or sell next. The tush push still alive, but another proposal in play now to ban it. Here's the new language. Quote, offensive players cannot assist the runner except by individually blocking opponents for him, end quote. This was submitted by the Green Bay Packers. A vote is coming tomorrow. Bomani Jones, we'll start with you here. Will a language tweak mean a tush push ban is coming?
I don't know if it's going to happen on this iteration, but at some point they're going to tweak the words until they finally get it out there, because it feels like cheating. It doesn't matter whether or not it's actually cheating, but it feels like cheating to people. And so they're going to find a way to make it stop, especially since only one team has demonstrated itself to be really good at it. And whenever something in a game has been solved, people try to take that away.
Bill Barnwell, around the horn to you. What are you hearing in NFL circles right now about this vote tomorrow? And do you believe the tush push will be banned with this tweak of language?
A lot of teams want this banned, but they're afraid to put their names out in front of it. I don't think it's an accident that the Packers, the one team without an owner, is the one that submitted this publicly. What I will say is this. You know, you could say it's a gimmick. The fact that the Eagles do it much better than anybody else in the NFL tells you it's a skill. It's not just some dumb party trick you can do to get first downs. And the injury risk here has been overstated. I've seen Patrick Mahomes get hurt on a sneak, on a speed option where he got knocked out. He's gotten hurt on real plays with the quarterback run game. There have not been any injuries we know about with the tush push, so I could see how it would be dangerous, but at the end of the day, it has not been a problem for the Eagles. They feel good about it.
So come tomorrow afternoon, is it banned?
I would be surprised if it's banned, but I think it is on its last legs either this year or next year.
Last tush, you might say. Emily Kaplan, how about you?
Doesn't it feel ironic that all of these unnamed, like really ashamed owners that Bill Barnwell just mentioned can't do what the Eagles can do so effectively well, which is just all get together really quickly and push something over the finish line so safely and effectively? My only ask is that this just gets resolved tomorrow, right? We can't have the tush push out live around the horn. Just have it resolved.
Marcel Louis-Jacques.
I have no idea how I'm supposed to follow that absolute bar from Emily, but I will say banning this play feels a little bit like banning the slam dunk because Kareem was too good at it back in the day. Like, you can't punish a team for doing something better than the rest of the league can do. And look, I've been in these locker rooms. Defensive players hate this play. I hate watching the play, but it's legal. It's legal, and they're the only ones that can do it. Like Bill said, it is a skill. You cannot punish that, but the NFL will find a way eventually.
Buy or sell two. Eastern Conference Finals start tonight on ice. Panthers at Hurricanes. Panthers the champs, as we know. Canes coming in more rested and with home ice, where they haven't lost yet this postseason. Kaplan, you're our first liner here. How do you break down this series? Who do you favor?
So both of these teams play a physically demanding style of hockey, and I want to give respect to the Hurricanes, who've been doing it well for a really long time. I've just never been around a team that talks about rest and recovery, spends the most money on it, is very intentional about it, quite like the Florida Panthers. It's why they tend to get better as series go along and grind out teams in the third period, and that to me is their advantage.
Even though technically they don't have as much rest, Carolina is more rested. But you believe the effort they put into that over the long run of this season and franchise-wise favors them. Marcel Louis-Jacques, who should be favored in the series?
I think Florida, because Paul Morris could teach a college course on putting the foot to throat. They are 27-0 in playoffs under Morris when they lead at the end of any period. That level of expertise, that level of know-how come this time of year and this season, it's difficult to beat. So give me the defending champs to get back to the cup.
Maurice, let me hear the romance in it. Maurice, not Morris.
Maurice.
Bomani Jones, who should be favored here, the champs or the team with home ice?
I mean, first, a shout out to my people in the Triangle in North Carolina. Second, Anderson has probably been the best goaltender in this postseason. The trick for the Panthers is they play the style that matches up well with Carolina, which is probably not a team that's going to do a lot of adjusting because that's not really Brenda Moore's get down. However, I'm going to go with my home team, even if I don't live there no more, the Carolina.
That's right. I mean, your time there. I didn't know you were a Caniac, the storm surge of it all.
Yeah,
Bill
neither
Bardwell,
did
around the horn to you. Neither did I, you said.
Everyone's talking about what the Panthers are, their focus on rest. Did they not just get pushed to 7 games by the Toronto Maple Leafs, who had fans throwing their jerseys onto the ice in Game 5 and then shut them out in Game 6 to go back to Toronto? I mean, this is not the Panthers team we saw the last couple of years. Yes, if they get a lead, they get ahead, but the Hurricanes have been excellent at getting leads themselves. They have the best goaltender of any team left in the postseason.
Okay.
To me, I think we're underrating them. I think they're going to pull this one out.
Back to Kaplan. You gave me a broad, general view of a franchise here that's got it figured out in Florida, but I want keys on the ice right now, please. Around the horn to you.
Yeah, well, I think when it comes to the Florida Panthers, they just come at you in waves. That's what I was talking about with that physically demanding style. I think that their forward group is very deep, and they've had one of the more underrated defensemen in the entire league in Gustav Forsling. I just think the things that he does is quite incredible. And Sergei Bobrovsky is locked in. He looked pretty shaky early in that Toronto series and completely shut them down. And to Bill's point, yes, they pushed it to 7, but was there any doubt when that first period started in Toronto who was the better team? It was Florida that was prepared because they were resting and recovering.
That will be the last word. Everybody takes some rest and recovery. But no eliminations now. This is how we're doing it on our final week. A showdown for Kaplan, Louis-Jacques, Jones, and Barnwell next.
Around the Horn is brought to you by Popeyes. Love that chicken from Popeyes.
When Around the Horn debuted, November 4th, 2002, there was a mechanism I loved. The final FaceTime was based on the number of points you scored in the show. I'm bringing it back right now. FaceTime, Marcel Louis-Jacques, 18 seconds. Tell us everything.
You know, Tony, they say don't meet your heroes, but for the past 2 years, my past 2 years on this show has proven that that's really not always the case. Even from that initial phone call and text from you, it never felt like you were prepping me for the show or teaching me how to be successful. It truly felt like you were welcoming me in, like you were excited to have me. You wanted to have me here. And that's what it's been for the past 2 years. Even Bomani, this is the first time I've ever gotten to speak to Bomani in person, but he messaged me after my first show to see how I was feeling and see what I thought of that day. And I just want to thank everybody involved for having me, for making me feel welcome. I'm going to miss all of you, man. I'm going to miss this show.
Emily Kaplan, FaceTime now yours.
Well, I think it's obvious what this opportunity and this platform meant for my career, and I'm forever grateful to be included in this family. But it's the people behind the scenes that have worked so tirelessly to help us. Josh, Jeff, Caroline, Tierney, Aaron, JD, Miriam, everyone in the control room that worked so hard every day to allow us to shine. And on this show, we're always talking about what makes a good team. Are they a good team? If it's Game 7, that's the team I want to go to battle with. They're all rock stars.
Bill Barnwell, FaceTime.
You know, I was nervous when I first got on this show, and there was a moment that changed things for me. I gave some stats, some nerd thing, and Tony looked at me and said, "Is that right?" And that is that right is the moment that stuck with me throughout this entire show. First moment I felt like I had my legs. Every time I get an "is that right" from Tony Reali, I feel like I've done something right. So hopefully you find someone in your life who's as caring and loving as Tony Reali, and something that he does makes you as happy as when Tony says, "Is that right" to me.
Is that right? Okay, sure. Hey, Bomani Jones, please, now. FaceTime is yours.
Hey, look, man, I showed up and nobody said out loud who the hell does he think he is, but I definitely saw it on their faces, and I appreciate the following people for waiting long enough for me to answer that question. Bill Plaschke, J.A. Adonde, Tim Kalishaw, Kevin Blackstone, Jackie McMullen, Bob Ryan, and maybe the two most important figures on this show, Woodrow Wilson Page Jr. and Tony Reali. Now, if you don't mind me talking about myself for a little while.
I told you, he's the man who invented the bells.
The People's Champion is still here. We are still swanging and banging and panking, rang, kanging, even if I can't find the ring no more. Thank you for changing my life and the lives of many of us.
Bomani Jones, Bill Barnwell, Emily Kaplan, Marcel Louis-Jacques. Final Around the Horn. Back with more special guests tomorrow as we finish out the week here.